Welcome to episode 27 of the Oso Spurs podcast, where we not only have a full house, but we still have a manager. So I'm just going to start. Starting with you, Si, how are you?
Yeah, tip top, Jim. Doing well and glad to be here.
Very good. And Deej, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right, Glad we finally have a manager.
Indeed.
Long may it continue.
And Stu, how are you?
Super happy. We can start being positive and looking forward.
Yes, we can. And of course, we've got Jonny. How are you, mate?
Okay. I am not on mute, am I?
You've nailed it. You're fine.
You did. See, the future's bright. I've figured out the mute button. No, I'm really good, thank you. Really, really excited about the new manager. So, raring to go.
Excellent. So, yeah, we're going to today talk about a little bit some pieces from Ange that maybe people haven't heard before yet. We don't really want to go into the blinding obvious. Everyone's heard to death that he plays high press attacking football. He has team talks that are about the values of family, and people are extremely drawn into him. And he doesn't have that close around the shoulder persona people assume he will have. He's got actually quite a distanced personality from the players. So I think everyone's heard that to the death. So we don't really want to dive into that. We also want to dive into a little bit of like a pragmatic, he's fantastic fit, but no one's perfect. Where could the downsides be, and where could certain players be dead men walking as a result of his philosophy and system? But also, which players are likely to thrive under him? Si, I'll start with you on, since he's been appointed, who do you think out of our squad, we've done a lot of research on his system, is someone you're excited to see over the next couple of seasons versus someone you think is out the door pretty soon?
So I think with the system he plays, he either plays a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. I think mainly, right? So I think that those two number 8s in midfield are really important for him. So he tends to play 2-8s, and I think Basuma and Bentancur could be absolute stars underneath him. The challenge you got is, what does he do with that creative piece in midfield? Because we don't have that. We don't have that number 10. So I think the Bentancur comes back. Basuma thrives. I think Skip and Sarr can play roles in that midfield. I think Højbjerg has a role to play in that midfield as well. I think sort out a creative number 10, and you haven't got much to worry about in that midfield, I don't think. So I think the midfield is in pretty good shape. I worry about the defence. I think we all do. I think centre back is a massive challenge for us. Romero, he can play in a 2 if there's thought about it. He can play in a 2. He won the World Cup as a 2, right? He played right-sided centre back for Argentina, so he can play in a 2. Longley, I'm not sure. There's talk about us taking up the option with Longley. I don't know whether that's clickbait or whether it's true. Times he looked really good. Times he looked a bit suspect. I think under the right manager with the right system, he could be good. But if you're going to 4 at the back, we're a little bit exposed at fullback, I think, in terms of defensive fullback. So Emerson, he's done a great job towards the back end of the season when we played a 4, and I think he could be our starting right back. But where's the cover? Because Spence maybe, but is he more of a wing back than a right back? And Porro, we've discussed Porro at length about his inability to do anything defensively. And then on the left hand side, I think we're quite exposed. Davis could probably do a job for another year at left back, but I don't know about Udoga. I don't know. He's an out and out wing back or a winger, I think. So I don't know where we sit at left back there. So I think we've got some questions, we've got some challenges. I think also Conte and Mourinho went on about we don't have the players to play their system, and they weren't supported in the transfer market. So hopefully these players are best fitted to play the Postecoglou type of system where they can hit the ground a little bit running. I think as well the more attacking, the more front foot football, I think that's the football that footballers maybe prefer to play, where they have the ball, where they're getting forward, they're trying to score goals. I think that suits us. So I think looking at my notes, I think that's about goalkeeper. How did I miss a goalkeeper? We need a goalkeeper, don't we?
Desperately.
We definitely need one of them. And also, what Postecoglou needs more than anything else is time, because it could be a bit rocky the first 6 months. I think. I mean, we could be hovering sort of like between 6 and 10, 6 and 10 in the table, and it's whether Levy has got the gonads to, back him. You would say, given a 4-year deal, you would hope that he has. That all the signals say that he has, but I don't think we're under any illusions, right? That it might be a bit of a up and down start whilst the players get used to the systems, the training, the philosophies, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I think, as we've said before, I think the board have the patience with him, but our fans won't, and that's not saying every single fan. But there's a certain group of fans whose expectations are that Tottenham should be challenging Man City for the title, and anything below that is a disgrace. And there's also a group of fans who are so fed up with the last 6 years that anything that can provide them ammunition to drive what they see as the bigger picture, which is that Tottenham needs change from the board level, they'll latch onto quite early on, is my feeling. So it would be a shame if we forced out, as fans, someone who on paper seems such a perfect fit. And as Celtic fans found as well, and you've heard it all before, everyone, but it does take a bit of time. They didn't win any of the first 3 games, I don't think, when he came in. Like, he's not going to just instantly cure things with a cheat code, but if we give this guy time, we'll sort us out. But Deej, where's your head out? I know you mentioned Ndombele before. Anyone in particular that you think's it's going to thrive under him, or just be swiftly removed?
I'm not sure that it's necessarily under him that it'll thrive, but someone that I'm really excited to see next season is Bissouma, because I think, as we saw at the end of last season, or at the end of this season, I guess, as he got healthy, he looked like the player that we thought he was going to be. And he just was under a system that didn't suit him, and under a manager that didn't really want to suit him. Didn't really want to play to his strengths. So I think that Postecoglou, despite having like a defined style of football, doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to do the Conte thing of you have to play this way or you're gone. So I'm excited to see what he does with Bissouma. I am also excited to see what he does with Kane, because it's been talked about other places. I'm not going to go too much into it, but the high pressing 9 that Postecoglou likes to play with isn't necessarily how we think of Kane. Not that he can't perform that role, but I think that we'd all agree that it would be, I guess, better to put his energy towards more offensive output, depending on how Postecoglou uses him. It's also interesting because I think that role could be done pretty well by Richarlison, actually. Players, the last player I'm really excited for is Udogie, because despite him being more of like a wingback at Udinese, he there were lots of times where he would like take up spaces more inside, which kind of suggests that he could learn how to like be an inverted fullback, sort of like Ange seems to use in his system. So I think that that's going to be pretty good. The player that I think is going to struggle, I think probably Højbjerg. I know that's a pretty common answer, but he feels like a mix between an Ange 6 and an Ange 8, which means that he's not like elite enough at either of those positions to be where we need to be. Maybe I'll be wrong. He plays farther forward for Denmark, and it seems to have worked for him in the past, but I guess we'll see.
It's also with Højbjerg, I do wonder, because Xhaka, when Arsenal started playing him in a more forward role, really transformed as a player, and Højbjerg isn't so bad that he's not a bad player. He's a good all rounder. But I agree. It'd be interesting to see if he's a priority or if it's just stick with him for now and worry about that next time. But Stu as well. Just talking about Kane there, that Deej was talking about. The E-wing theory, I know we've spoken about before, which is essentially that if a star player receives too much attention in the media and too much fan interest that's bigger than your club, it typically means you'll perform better if you sell that player, no matter how good they are, as a collective, and you'll be better than you were without them. A bit of a loaded question, but where does that leave your head with Kane? Do you think Postecoglou's better off keeping him or cashing in 100 million quid and having it to
I
address other issues?
I think the issue is more along the lines of whether we would sell Kane or not is not really relevant, because I think Kane will stay and will leave on a free, whether we want to sell him or not. He doesn't care that we want to make money. He wants to go where he wants to go. And I personally, it's a tough one, because as you know, we were talking about before, Ange is not stupid. He'll find a way to get the most out of Kane. I mean, this is a bloke who scored 30 league goals last season. And I agree with what DJ was saying before. I think Richie could do probably the better job than Kane up front, but Kane could play in that role behind, where his creative skills, his passing skills come to light, and then he could come in later into the box, ghost in, and with his finishing, could score a lot of goals. I mean, I would love him to stay, but if it was up to me, if he doesn't sign, I'd sell him if I could. But I just think he's going to leave us on a free, whether we like it or not. Going back to what DJ said as well, I'm also super excited about Bissouma. I think Bissouma could have an amazing season. I was so excited last season when we bought him, and that was one of the things I hated Conte for not even giving him a chance, just because supposedly he wasn't tactically aware enough. But I think he could have a spectacular season. I think Højbjerg is probably safe until January, because Bentancur is going to take a while to get back. But I think from January onwards, I fear for Højbjerg's future with us. And at the back, I fear for any central defender that isn't called Romero, because they won't have the ball playing skills or the speed to be able to cope with a high press, which is going to be a tough one.
Well, let's as well. I'm sorry.
Sorry?
No, you finish.
No, I was going to say, and when it comes to time, I think I really hope all the fan base gets behind Ange, that we understand this is going to be a difficult time. We're going from 4 years of negative football to all of a sudden trying to play a very different style of football. Although, the style of football that, you referred to earlier, that is something that footballers want to do, which is, if you remember, we were talking about Slot and how he got players converted when he took over at Feyenoord, and the players bought in because naturally that's what footballers want to do. And I think that'll be easy for, an easy sell to our players. But I think Ange is also pretty lucky in the fact we don't have European football. So he will have more time on the training field and more time between games, hopefully. That will mean that our results turn around quicker than they might have done, otherwise.
Agree, and that happened at Celtic as well, didn't it? When they were in the Champions League, they really struggled in his first season juggling all those games, but they started to perform well in multiple competitions after he'd had that first year to install everything. So it might be a good thing for us that we're not in Europe in the first season. And I know a lot of people like you've said Romero is going to be a shoo-in, and it feels like that to everyone, that he's the one guy who's untouchable in that defence. He's, to me, if we're being really honest, he hasn't had the best attitude in a Spurs shirt. And Ange takes no bullshitters. He takes no prisoners. He's ruthless of who gets shown the door. So we're interested to see if he reacts, embraces this, and becomes a star man for us. Or you never know. Maybe if he's still.
I agree with that. I think last season he wasn't anywhere near as good as his reputation was. But I just think that we've got bigger issues to focus on beside him before we start worrying about replacing him.
True. And we'll go to Jonny next. And Jonny's, we were meant to have a guest on today, but he works in the Scottish leagues as a professional. So he wasn't allowed on, basically, because of conflicts of interest. But he did send over some thoughts, as he's very closely followed Ange during his time working over there. And Jonny, I'll pass it over to you. But the bit that really kind of excited me that you were telling us earlier was about him. You think Ange will have a three-year plan with us, and it won't be unambitious, to say the least.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're saying about the giving him the time. Will the fans give him the time? My own point of view is that, like, I think Stu kind of touched on there, just like what we've gone through over the last few years. I think we're all a little bit like, in fact, we're all seriously tainted, kind of scarred by what we've kind of gone through. And I think there's almost a reluctance to be optimistic. And I'd say that out of the five of us, I'm definitely not the most optimistic, but I feel that from the tone of what you guys have been saying so far, although you're fairly positive. Well, you are positive about things. I am unreservedly very, very optimistic and really hopeful. And I guess as my mate who works in Scotland, he's also from former season ticket holder at Parkhead, and he's absolutely he's in pieces. He's still in pieces. He's really, really upset. And he said, and it's quite interesting. He said that he thought that if they would lose Ange, they'd be losing him to City or to Liverpool. Obviously, he's like, Liverpool's his dream job because that was his boyhood club. And then you listen to some of the conversations about the appointment from other Spurs podcasts or in the media and whatever, and they're like saying, like he won't believe how lucky he is to be at Tottenham. I mean, I'm not saying I understand why people are saying that, but I actually think we're unbelievably lucky to have Postecoglou, to be honest with you. And like my friend was saying, he believes that the level of confidence that Ange has, the fact that he's been coaching for 25, 27 years, something like that already, in different places, he's got a great eye for talent. We know all of that. He believes that he's going to have a 3-year plan. As soon as he comes in, assess what he's got, everybody gets a chance, and he'll be looking to win the league. That's kind of the ambition now. There'll be a lot of people probably spewing out their beer whenever they hear that kind of claim. But why not? I mean, okay, Leicester have gone down to the Championship, but they've won the league 5 or 6 years ago. I know it's more and more difficult now. The competition is more and more difficult, but I think the concern of my friend was that it's going to take Ange a bit of time to adapt to having quality opposition every week. Clearly, the Premier League is really, really competitive. The SPL is really not very competitive. Having said that, though, he's incredible belief in his own methods, and his character is huge. And I think that his charisma and his drive and his energy will win over the players really, really quickly. And I think that's something that he's done everywhere he's gone. So whilst my mate thinks that probably the top 4 in the first season might be a bit of a stretch because it probably will take a bit of time to adapt, I think that beyond that, he would think that we would be qualifying for the Champions League, and that Ange should be looking to win the league or the Champions League within 3 years. And like, just to have somebody coming in with that ambition, and not to sort of write off as, you've got to believe something to be able to achieve it, haven't you? And there have been much more stranger stories told that have come true in life. So, like, I think that the question of the fans giving him time is, I don't think it's going to be an issue, because I think that he's going to come in like a whirlwind, and I think that the players are going to see pretty quickly that there's going to be a different way that things are going to happen. There's the other lads that people haven't mentioned so far. People have talked about Adogi. You guys have talked about Adogi and stuff, and Spence coming back. There's also, as well as Ndombele, there's also the Celso. I mean,
I do.
There's a player there. Like, I just think that anyone who's on the periphery. There's also Brian Heel, isn't there? I mean, like, just another Europa League winner. I mean, we've got players. I mean, they cost enough money, didn't they? They didn't come out of the blue. They didn't come out of nowhere. A lot of these guys were expensive signings. Even Heel, for his age, that was a pricey deal to include Lamella in that. So yeah, I'm really excited. I don't know. I do think that there's issues with the whole backing of the previous boys with the wing backs. That's a concern. Where they go, are we surplus to requirements in that area? But definitely the areas that we need to improve are still the same ones that Jimmy's been banging on about for the last ever since we've been going in the center defense areas. And the goalkeeper. And it looks like there's a lot of there's a lot of talk about Raya today, isn't there?
Yeah,
Getting
apparently we've
closer.
agreed personal terms, but the
Yeah,
fee's an issue, and there's going to be double frustrations on the sides of our fan base. I get that people just say just pay the money, but on the other side, I guess for the club, it's like we don't have much money until we've sold someone, and they want the fees up front. And the other side is they've already signed the replacement, so we know their hands are tied in a sense. And I don't know. I wish we would just
yeah,
go on,
yeah.
I
The
Size.
think
last thing my mate, he's been as part of his coaching badges. He's had training days in Celtic and has seen Postecoglou working and in the training camp and at speeches by him from him as well. And so he was. I asked him about the Harry Maguire links because a lot of us would be very quick to dismiss that, and I think unlike the Jadon Sancho stories, which seem to be just made up for to fill the columns, the Maguire one is quite an interesting one, and like he's obviously not done great to say the least, but like there's a level of confidence that for if you can get him for 10 million, a 30-year-old, it's not necessarily the signing that you would just immediately turn your nose up. I think that this is a manager, if when he's in a couple of weeks and he's seen what he's got and he sees the attitude, anyone who doesn't like will not be getting any opportunity. Like everyone gets an opportunity, but he's not going to be pissing around. And I think it would be interesting to see that. I do really believe that this guy has got a huge capacity to get the best out of players and
I
really
just I
pull in
just
the
think
same
with people,
direction.
players like Maguire, it's one mistake will be treated
Yeah,
with so much more uproar than a
that's
player
true.
who makes 5 mistakes because of his reputation that he's a dead
Yeah,
man walking before he
that's
gets on
fair
the
enough. Yeah,
pitch. But
And it'll
sorry,
be a
Si,
Levy
obviously,
keep
yeah.
signing.
yeah,
that's
exactly. Is all that against him? But sorry, Si, you were trying to say
Yeah,
something.
no, I think Johnny raising the Lo Celso question is an interesting point because if he wasn't injured for the World Cup, he was a shoo-in for one of the first on the team sheet for Argentina, right? And you hear Messi talk about Lo Celso and about how much he enjoys playing with him and how much he links the play up. And you've got McAllister just gone to Liverpool. I don't know what he went for in the end, but that's seen as a great site. They got him on the cheaper bit, didn't they? Because the
40
release
million, I think.
clause was it 40 million in the end?
I think it was 35 rising to 55 with
35. Okay,
add-ons.
but that's seen as a great signing. But Lo Celso was a shooing into that Argentinian side through qualifying. He would have been the starter for the team, and I think there's a player there. I think there's a player there. There's a number 10 in there somewhere, and could he fit into the system? I think if I was going to choose between Ndombele and Lo Celso coming back, I might just tip on the side of Lo Celso. I don't think Ndombele's got the work ethic that Postecoglou is looking for, but I think Lo Celso's an interesting. Do you bring him back and go with him for a season and see how he goes under Postecoglou? It's an option.
Well, can I play devil's advocate as well to all you all? Everyone's really enjoying that Postecoglou says if plan A fails, do plan A better. To me, that is just Jose and Conte's biggest flaws right over again. Because I think in the Premier League as well, you're going to come up against more teams who have a plan B for teams that play high press attacking football. Does it concern anyone else that he's basically said, I will not compromise on one formation and one way of
But
playing?
I think he does change though, Jim. I think he's proven in the past that he does change formations when needed. I think what he says is, I'm not going to change the mentality. Plan A is to attack, score more goals than the others, press high, win the ball back quickly. All of those things can be true with a slightly different formation that's built around who you're playing. But I think that's more around his footballing philosophy that's Plan
Mm.
A. I think he's a little bit more nuanced than just than certainly Conte or Mourinho in terms of, oh my God, I, I'm getting flashbacks to this season, and I'm struggling to talk now because I think I've got some PTSD. If I'm honest, I think that's really scarred me. It's the first season that scarred me as badly as maybe the late '90s. I don't know, but yeah. So I think in my head that's what I'm hearing is plan A is attack, press, get the ball back quickly, but you do it within some parameters and within some boundaries. And I think he's flexible enough to change his approach within that. But I think that's what I was taking from that anyway.
Okay,
Yeah, I
interesting.
agree spot on with that. If you think Pep's the same, Pep has the same philosophy in the sense that it's all about attacking possession-based football. But how many times has he changed the way his teams played over the years? So I agree. It's not the Conte kind of this is the way we play and that's it.
I see what you mean. But it's also good. I'm just so delighted that we've got someone who plays a 4 at the back, but knows how to avoid your midfield getting overloaded, because that solves one of our centre-back issues straight away. You don't need to sign 3 centre-backs now. You need one more starter and a decent backup. So I feel a bit better about the players we have already in the system. And I just hope he finds a way of making the wing-backs work, because otherwise we've spent a lot of money on wing-backs lately.
So, Jim, who excites you then for next season?
I'm super excited to see you, Doggy, on the left, because I think Son's coming to an end. Whether we like it or not, he's in his 30s and he's a pacey player that relies on his pace. As simple as he's got fantastic finishing, so I'm sure he still has a role to play, but it just won't be Golden Boot challenging Son anymore. It'll be a really good squad player who can, and he does turn up in big games sometimes, Son. So I do think he's worth having around the squad. And yeah, like you guys said, Basuma for me, if he's given a role where he's allowed to actually play the ball out himself, I think he could just really, really take that role in his stride and just show his athleticism. So yeah, and I'm not as optimistic about Brian Hill. I still think he's maybe a loan away in the Prem before coming back and being ready to play for us. But let's see. It'll be interesting. So yeah, there's also another thing I wanted to raise to get your guys' view on. Is it a red flag to you that we are in deep conversations with a couple of players, but we don't have a director of football? Is this, a lot of people are going to be saying again, the chairman's taking the lead on the transfers, or is this just trying to get ahead of things whilst we wait for the perfect candidate? What do you guys think?
I think that they're different. I think I have different opinions on different players, and that may be my bias on how I view the players and how much I view that they're necessary. One, I think that even if we have a director of football, whether like we have either, regardless of whether or not we have a director of football, we have a scouting department that is set up, and a new director of football isn't going to come in and rip that up. So having like a scouting department that has, because operating under the assumption that based on everything that has been said, that we've known that we were going to have Ange for at least a couple of weeks now. So operating under that assumption, I don't think it's too big of an issue that we are using that scouting department to start to scout players, because for the same reason that we need a director of football, because like we say within like modern football, a manager can't also be the talent ID. A director of football also can't do that. Like he cannot be the only person going out and looking. So having people like that are already within the club looking for prospective signings, if we weren't doing that, I'd probably be more concerned. For Raya specifically, I think that's one that just makes too much sense to not look at. We need a ball playing goalkeeper. He's performed quite well for Brentford. He's homegrown. Like it's just a no brainer across the park. I think if we can talk them down to even closer to like 30 mil, I think that's one of the easiest signings that we'll make this summer, or the easiest decisions we would have to make this summer. Whether or not we sign him remains to be seen, whether we'll pay the money or whatever. But if we pay 40, I think that may hamstring us in other areas. And if we pay 40, I kind of would rather just spend a little extra and go for Magnan. But
For who?
I mean, I said if we could pay, because I know that Magnan has been linked to Chelsea.
He's not going anywhere.
That's that. I think that 40 million for a keeper on 1 year, I think that we can put that money somewhere better. If we can get it down to 30, I think that's a great idea. I'm a little more hesitant on other players, but like I said, we have a system set up. We may not have a man at the top, but that doesn't mean that the people below can't start working.
And what about this centre back we've been linked with? Has anyone done much research on him. I'm intrigued. He sounds like he's a ball playing centre back in his kind of prime years. That's what. Why is he leaving? Do we even know? We've really under researched him.
Yeah, I mean,
totally.
Yeah.
We're all looking at Deej now. Come on, Deej.
Yeah.
Come on, stat us up. Stat it up. Come on.
I mean, he like on paper he fits the idea of an Ange center back. You could say that similar to the complaints we have with Ange. I'm assuming you're talking about the guy from the Turkish league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he hasn't done it in a top 5 league, but we said that about Kim Min-jae before, and now we use that as a thing to get mad at Levy over. So I think that it'll be I think that if we were to sign him, I have confidence that we will have done proper scouting on him. It kind of feels like a more of an early transfer window name toss though to me, especially because I haven't seen anything on it in a couple of days.
Do any of you guys think there's a possibility that we'll go back for Cameron Carter-Vickers as a backup?
I was just thinking that, and I was saying, please no.
Yeah.
But I've heard this, and people who know Ange and follow the SBL think he'd be a great fit for us, but I just can't see it. No. Surely not.
I think there are maybe 3 or 4 players at Celtic who you could see potentially being signed. He's not going to bring in more than probably one though, and I don't think Carvick would be among them. And unfortunately, it's more the forward players that are the ones that would probably be of the level. Like Jota is a class player; he's really good, but like we don't really need somebody a wide another winger. So he's probably not. I think Kyogo's been really impressive this season, and the midfielder Matt O'Reilly's like underage Danish international. But he's like one of the first names in the team sheet, and for the Celtic team, he's kind of like I know Alex Scott has been put in there, but the Madison has been mentioned, but I think Matt O'Reilly's actually he's class. But again, it's hard to know when you're talking about the level they're playing against. You know, who's got, I think it's Fulham and MK Dons before he went up to Celtic. So he's very young though. I don't think Carvick is. I mean,
he's just not.
To be honest, like,
that level, is he?
No, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, Joe Hart wasn't a joke for us. Like, he had a couple of clangers, but he wasn't Carter Vickers, and but they both were pretty regular players. Or certainly, Hart obviously was a starter every week. I don't think so. The other fellow is like Max Kilman at the Wolves lad, Max Kilman. I don't know what he would cost though, but he's had a really good season, and he's a player, Nathan Collins, who's Irish international. He's lost his place. He can't get back in since Kilman's to come in in January. Been really, really solid. So I don't know. I guess when you're talking about with no director of football, Jim, I think the issue is, it's players like the Longley situation where what you've kind of got, and what you do know you need to strengthen in that area. I'm not sure whatever the deal would be there, but it's not going to cost very much, and he's probably is a decent backup. And people have said you don't want to have people just as a backup option, which is I understand that. But it's like, anyone who wants to give Dyer another contract can just bugger off. I'm sorry, that's
I know. Our dynasty of those guys is done. The likes of Dyer, I just
hope so. But
remember earlier in the season,
Longley a contract without director of football. So I don't see the issue with that. Signing players, however, when Ange hasn't come in, he's going to be starting the 1st of July. Presumably, players are back then as well. So he's not going to be. I wouldn't have thought there's going to be too many signings until second half of July. I don't know.
I assume he's watching endless videos of us and going over the whole history of what happened with us. But
wasn't there something that he's come in for a transfer meeting with Levy already?
Yeah, Friday.
So he was in on Friday to have a discussion about where the team might need strengthening, etc., etc. So I think that's the process has started. So maybe he's given some direction to the scouting team. Because again, coming back to the point around we built the scouting team under Paratici, that he built a whole organisation underneath him, right? That was solely for the purpose that if you have a director of football move on, that the organisation can keep running. It's not under one person's overall direct control. And I think hearing what's been coming out of the club, I think there's 2 or 3 that have stepped up to sort of jointly take the reins there. So the day-to-day work is still happening. It's like any organisation. If a leader leaves, it might not be ideal, but you still get teams that step up and do that, right? So I think Postecoglou has probably come in to talk about what type of players he's looking for, what type of players might be needed for them to go out and start having a look. So they've got something for him when he comes back on the 1st of July. I think that's probably where it's at.
I think the
I'm
problem though
guessing
is
also
we've got
Mason. Sorry, go, Jonny.
No, sorry, I was just going to say that the classic we've been dealing with for the last few years when it comes to Levy, or certainly the way it's reported, is we don't buy players until we've sold players, and we know where we've got to strengthen. So fair enough, like what Desai's just said makes perfect sense. If we can buy the players up front before we sell the guys that Postecoglou wants to get rid of, then great. But that's just not the way things have worked before. So I guess, I don't know, we're going to have to change the way we work, aren't we, in terms of
I think Mason will have given Ange feedback on the squad. So I think that he'll have been involved in that meeting on Friday. So he could have given feedback of whether Longley's worthwhile bringing him in as a backup or not. Yeah. But I disagree with what you were saying, Jonny. The last couple of years, we haven't sold players. And we've still spent, 300 million?
We've probably gone too far that way.
Yeah.
I'd argue.
So,
yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a given that we'll have to sell before we start buying.
How do we feel about it? Sounds like Mason's on the team. Sounds like all the reports are saying that Mason's going to be part of Ange's coaching staff. We like that. I like it.
Yeah.
Do we like it?
Yes.
Yeah. Any negativity about that is just so weird.
I don't get it. I've seen plenty of it online. Weird. What's the problem?
Yeah.
I mean, it gives you some level of continuity across the board as well, right? He's respected. He's respected by the players. He's led them for the back end of the season. And I think he's an ideal fit for Postecoglou.
Although
he wants to play the same sort of football as well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, if he's advising Ange on the squad, just remember he's the one who gave Mora three goes at it. So he might be signing a new contract with us after all. But
it paid off in the end, though, with that Worldie, didn't it? He got there in the end.
yeah.
The thing that I find funny that our vocal minority that have been getting very upset about Mason staying on, declaring he's got no ambition, just like Levy, and that's why he's not leaving. He should be going off. The lad's 31 years old. He's got years, 20, 30 years ahead of him. He should be. I mean, this is a perfect example. Like, he's learned from, whether we like their style of football or not, he's learned from Mourinho and Conte, and now he's going to learn from someone else who's got 27 years of experience. If he even stands as an assistant for another 3-4 years before he goes on his own, he's still only 35.
Exactly.
Plenty of time.
Yeah, and it also would provide a sort of better, I guess, liaison to players, because we all call him like Ryan Mason, because when he was from his first managerial stint, and so having someone who is more connected to the players can also help Ange with his more he like the reserved, objective view of the club that he likes to take.
You definitely need that kind of, for a leader like Ange who takes a step back from the players. You definitely need that feet on the ground, eyes and ears on the ground, trusted conduit that knows how to filter the information in both directions in the right way, so that you keep a level of consistency on the training ground and things don't get toxic when someone needs to leave, but also feedback is going back to the manager when players are unhappy and too scared to voice it to them. So I think it's just a no-brainer to have those trusted people from the club, boots on the ground. But it's interesting, Ange, isn't it? He doesn't have, like, what makes him unique as a manager is every time you appoint one, they come with this army of people. Ange doesn't have that. Wherever he's gone, he starts fresh with a new group of people, which is interesting. Is that a good thing or a bad thing from your guys' perspective?
I think if you look at his journey, he's not exactly, except for the stuff in Australia, he's gone from almost continent to continent, right? Maybe it's a bit more difficult to bring your backroom staff with you. Maybe that could be a thing. But I think I saw an interview or read an interview that he did, that he values the fact that using the local people that are already there helps to integrate him into the teams, helps him to integrate into the players, etc., etc. But he is talking about bringing one or two down, wasn't he? That Celtic have put a block on it. Is it Kennedy?
Yeah,
Stephen
there's Kennedy, Walsh,
Yeah, it
Kennedy.
was.
Strachan.
Yeah,
There's three of them.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe he brings one or two with him and then builds on what we've got there. I think bringing Mason into the fold, I think is great. Because I think that liaison into the team is so important. So listen, I think we're at a point now. We've got to trust what he's going to do, right?
we
Yeah.
do.
We've just got to trust him. We've had
We're ready to be hurt again.
Yeah,
I'm ready to be hurt again. I'm ready for
ready.
this. Let's do it. I'm ready. We've been here before, but this one feels different. She loves me this time. It just feels different. No, but
Want me.
I don't know about you
She
guys, but
wants
I'm.
me. It's not. It's
Exactly.
not
Well,
me begging her to come.
it
She
doesn't.
wants me.
It doesn't even feel like, to me. I feel like we are, even if we are a stepping stone, it will be more of a, I'm not done. I want to win a major trophy here, and then my job is complete there, and I'll leave. I'm not expecting him to stay around forever, but I think, Jonny, you said, your friend who works within professional Scottish Football League and knows him well, knows that he will be thinking, I want to win the title there in 3 years, and then I will leave. But that's fine. If you want to win the title with us and you do that and
Yeah.
you leave, I'm all in for it, and we can just. I'd like it to be Pochettino all over again, except we get our foot over the line, and then this time we wave goodbye at the right moment.
Yeah, I think the one of the positives that we're going to see this season will be because of the fact that there's no European football as well. Like the FA Cup and the League Cup are going to be far more important, aren't they? And obviously, we all have our shared view of the Sheffield United selection and the frustration of getting actually fairly deep into tournaments and then just like pretty much sacrificing or taking too many risks. So that's just not going to happen this season if we just have a little bit of luck and maybe avoid going away to Manchester City in the third round of the FA Cup or something. Then I think that's an area where we've actually really got a possibility. In the one-off games, we've beaten all the best teams over the last season or two. I mean, so I do think that, and to be honest with you, from listening to what my mate was saying, like he doesn't necessarily think, yes, Liverpool's a dream job because it's his boyhood club, but like Ange is 57, he's going to be 58. This has presumably been it's like the Nirvana in terms of getting to the Premier League. He's turned down jobs in the Premier League before, if reports are to be believed, including Brighton, which obviously are finished above us this season. He's taken an opportunity which, yeah, in some ways it's not a risk because although he's left something special behind in Glasgow, and he did have a project there to build in the Champions League success, to do something in Europe, to make them more competitive in Europe again. But like in some ways, it's not too much of a risk for him because he's at that later stage in his career. I think for him, if Levy can and slash Mann, if the board give him the support and he has success, and we get the sort of connections with the players and the supporters, which I think we will do pretty fast, then I don't think, from what I've understood and from my friend was saying, that he's going to just jump ship, because like Tottenham is a really big club. Like we got really close, and if he, I'm really really excited. I think that we're gonna really love. I think we're a little bit scared to jump into the deep end But I really
We're
think
scared to
it's
start
going to
dating
be.
again, aren't we?
Yeah, we don't want
Yeah,
to. We've got trust issues now, haven't we? We've got
yeah,
major trust issues. We don't want to commit. But
yeah,
you know what? Coming. What I really liked as well about the first official interview he did through the club was, and words are easy. I get that, right? So you can say whatever, but language is really powerful. So when Mourinho and Conte came in, you always got the feeling they were here to rescue us. This is a problem. This is a shit show. I don't worry. I've ridden in on my white steed, and I'm going to dig you out of the shit. Conversely, Postecoglou's come in and referenced the history. He said, I know what a great club this is. I know what the history is. I know what football you guys want to play. And I'm here to make sure we get back to that. And that's a different way of pitching that story. And so you automatically get, right, okay, I think he understands this. I think he gets some of this. And he played a fine balance between, it's a privilege to be here, but I'm also the right man to help you get back to where you want to get to. And I'm good. I can do this. Trust me. But I feel really privileged to be at this wonderful club. And
Yeah.
he used great club. He used great team. He used great history a couple of times. Or maybe I paraphrase that a little bit. But that was the whole ethos of it. That was the whole wraparound of that interview. Was him saying, "I'm here and I understand what you need."
You're spot on, Simon. I didn't think of that before, and I loved that statement of words are easy, but language is hard and powerful. That's a really nice statement. And you're right. Like even the way he's communicated to us fans, it's like I'm not here to fuck around. I'm here to win some stuff. I appreciate all the crap you guys have been through, and I
Yeah,
understand that. Let's just get this job done, kind of thing. And I'm 100% committed to that. He's never said he's never tried to bullshit us like, oh, I love Tottenham. I'm here to do you proud forever, guys. You're part of the family. And he's like, over bluffed with fake,
mm, mm.
with some fake love. It
yeah.
just feels
The other,
genuine.
the other point when you were talking earlier about the not having the plan B kind of thing. One thing that I think we've really been fed up with over the especially last season, was this the length of time it took for Sonny, for example, to lose his place, and the sort of whole business of not rotating, not being flexible with selections, and just giving ridiculous loyalty to certain individuals. Like that is just not going to happen with Ange. It really isn't. Like he's not going to pick you because of the name in your back of your shirt, or the number in the back of your shirt. And I think the players will see that quite quickly, and that's why I think that sort of honesty and that sort of just clear expectation. This is what you have to do, and if you don't do it, you're not gonna. Maybe you don't make one mistake and get dropped, but you're not going to be getting week after week like we had last year. So and I think again, because there's not the distraction, if that's what you want to call it, of Europe, then there's certainly the scope to do that as well, which is I think a really positive thing too.
Yeah.
Going back to the language, I did think it interesting when he started. It's that he said it was great to finally be able to get started. I've been wondering how long he's known he was joining us and how long he's already been planning ahead, which meant Friday's meeting would have been even more a progressive
Yeah.
stage
Yeah,
than would think.
You know how protracted these contract negotiations can be. There's so many clauses. There's so many clauses we don't see that the lawyers have to go over. There'll be iteration on iteration on iteration, and the fact that the final was on the Sunday and we announced on the Tuesday, I would say my gut feeling is that's been in the pipeline for a month,
Yeah.
if not longer.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's
Do you remember when I was saying in the WhatsApp group that I wanted him to reference that he'd been involved longer, kind of going back to a sarcastic comment about, not being first choice the week before? And I wonder, if he was really referring to it in that, it's like, you guys have been, going down this blind alley when you guys have got no idea what's going on.
No one knew anything, did they? That was what's so clear from
Do you
yeah.
think we've actually done it the right way this time? Then
Can't
we had somewhat of a shortlist, which every club would have, right? Yeah. So I don't doubt that Nagelsmann's slot and Postecoglou were the shortlist. We decided out Nagelsmann because he's a bit of a fruitcake and he wants to choose his own director of football, going down the Wenger route. Slot, maybe he tickled our fancy a little bit, but we didn't even talk to him. So therefore, the first one that we've actually gone with a serious offer and that we've negotiated with has taken the job.
Yeah.
And
I think there was a level
I
of
don't understand
realism.
what's wrong with that and why people are getting so they're Snickers in the Twix. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like we actually evaluated who was realistic, and I think that's partly why Nagelsmann was pushed off a bit. It was a bit like, do we really want to go through the whole thing of going for someone who's going to then publicly say they turned us down, just to make it clear that they turned us down, and they weren't turned down off the bat. And we thought actually Slot and Ange are the ones that tick the attacking, and those managers all had overlaps, which was nice to see, and their overlaps were a good style of football. And the things we as fans have been asking for to come back, and Slot and Ange are happy to work under a certain structure that other managers would front up against and push back on. So yeah, I think it's positive, boys. I think I need to end it in a minute, but I want to see if anyone's got any final thoughts or comments before I do. Or are we just all excited and happy for once?
Feeling really positive, mate. I'm feeling really positive.
Me too.
I mean, the only doubt I've got in my mind is if we don't have a good start, how wanky will the fucking Twitter brigade get? And then all of a sudden, the purple and yellow's out again, and it's all the board's fault. So that's my concern: is the toxicity that we had this season was the whole driver for this getting set up, right? And that's what drove me nuts. But I think he's a brilliant signing. I think he'll engage with us. I think he'll engage the players, and I think we'll look back in a year's time thinking absolutely fucking outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. And go on, sorry, Stu.
I was going to say, I hope that the board just have the resolution to stick with their decision, like that lot down the road did with Arteta. Their fan base wanted him out after they finished 8th for the second year in a row, and they stuck with him, and this is where they are now. And I just hope that we've noticed that changing a manager every season doesn't give you continuation and it creates problems with the squad. And they said, okay, this is what we want. We've given him a 4-year contract. Let's see what he can do in those 4 years.
I'd say if we lose to City, it's a sign things are actually going the right way, because everything's broken. Like, we lose the games we should win, and we win the games we should lose for the last 4 years. And the system's broken. Something weird is going on. If we lose to City, I think the irony will be that we finally play a style of football that plays into City's hands, and we finally get a walloping by them next season. But we won't go to Brentford and set up for a draw and come home losing 3-1. I think those will be the differences. You win the games you should win, and you might lose the games you should lose, but over the course of a season, you'll do better, because there's more teams we should beat as Tottenham than we should lose against. So simple averages.
I think in terms of from what Stu and Si were saying as well, Jim, that I think it would have to be outrageously, shockingly awful for the board to pull the trigger, because the fact that he's got the 4-year deal is quite a departure, isn't it? And a statement. And I think it illustrates something that their convictions and their realization that we just have to do something quite significantly different from what's been going on. So I'd be quite confident that he will get time, unless it'd be nice to get a opening round of fixtures like we had last season, because we won the first 5 or 6 home games last season. That'd be nice to have the kind of those sorts of teams up again fairly early. But I'm not particularly concerned by that, because I do think that it's just going to be a really a nice breath of fresh air, that we'll be playing the ball so much more quickly. The ball's it's not going to be moving. You're not going to see Romero twaddling up the park with and stopping and all the stuff that we've been watching. That was my first season of the season ticket, and I'm looking forward to going back. And I know I love Spurs. The fact that I'm still renewed, because before all this, I'm really excited, because it's going to be good. It's going to be really good, and I think
it's going to be great.
It is. It is going to be great.
I've got to shut it down there, guys. I've got to go, but thank you very much. Love the chat. and we'll be back over the next week or so when we sign our first players. We'll do some scouting on them and bring on guests. There's also talk of a joint podcast, which is a bit early in the works, but we might be joining forces with Fighting Cock, Cheese Room, and Dr. Tottenham for a kind of joint pod competition that we're thinking of, where we can all get together. Have a bit of a kind of like pod quiz against each other, a bit of friendly fun. So stay tuned for that one as well. But yeah, up the Spurs, I guess, boys.
Go on, you Spurs!
Go on,
Up the
Spurs.
Spurs.
Catch you soon.
See ya.